Thanks very much. Deborah.
I thought the TD was supposed to be back there.
Well, that's great, a great introduction. And a lot of the things that were already touched upon here, we're going to do a deep dive into AI tonight, as well as other things that are challenging the industry. My name is Deborah Kaufman. I'm a media and entertainment journalist. I'm really happy to see that the house is crowded again for this annual event that founded by Terry Curran, and then fabulously supported on and on and on by Keycode Media. Housekeeping, there's bathrooms that direction. The panel part will end about 8:30, and there's going to be lots and lots of opportunities to ask questions. We love your questions. So I'll make sure to create little breaks where you can ask those questions, so hold on to them. Let me just quickly, I introduced myself. I'm going to introduce from my right going down. Directly to my right is Jeff Sengpeel, who is CTO of Keycode Media. Next to him is Michael Kamas, who is a creative technologist and the producer of 5 Things, right? Is that the?
I am 5 Things.
He is 5 Things. I'm not sure you should ask him what those 5 things are, but maybe he'll tell you. And next to him, we have 2 people who I think it's their first time on Editor's Lounge, Shahrzad Behzadi, who is executive producer of MTI Films. Welcome. And next to her, Xander Schwab, who's a senior colorist at IDC LA. So welcome, panelists. And even though we're kind of in a grim period of time for our industry, all jokes are welcome. I don't have any new, engineer jokes, but I appreciate all jokes. So since we are talking about technology, I thought it would be good to start off by, I just gave you the people's names and their titles and their companies. But underneath all that, they accomplish jobs, which may or may have changed over time, and most likely have used different technologies over time. So I want to ask each one to tell us what they actually do in their jobs and what technologies they use to accomplish that job. So Jeff, I'll start off with you.
Sure. What I do in my job. There's always that, what you tell your parents you do and what everybody else thinks you do. I manage the solutions team here. So I am part of the group that goes out and talks to folks when they need to get something done. Give me what you want to do, and let's find out how we can get there. So in that process, I'm doing things like writing up scopes of work, figuring out different products, and the thing is, pieces of technology that we're talking about these days are different than they used to be. And the tools we're using to package how we're talking and presenting to clients are different. It's much simpler to get to the result. However, much simpler in terms of technology to get to the result, but there's a lot more moving pieces today.
And I would presume as CTO also that you're also constantly on the lookout for where it's going.
Yes.
New things, all the way.
And the other thing also is, in the last year and a half, I'm bombarded by pitches for anything and everything. So I need AI for my email to weed that stuff out, because the AI to send the email to me is apparently doing really well.
Yes, more spam than ever before?
More unsolicited emails. It's not necessarily spam. I'm their target demographic, but you're approaching me the wrong way. You haven't figured out enough about my use cases to be contacting me.
Right, I hear you. All right, next, Michael. Tell us what those 5 things are.
If you had asked me 6 months ago what I did, I would have had a completely different answer, but obviously things have changed in the industry. So the best way I can phrase it is technology consultant. So a lot of the technology that Keycode happens to sell, as well as other companies, I got to know how it works, and then I consult with television studios, production houses, lately big YouTubers, and getting them educated on technology and the gear they need. And then a passion of mine is technical education. So 5 Things is a series I started almost a decade ago, where I demystify technology in our industry for folks who may not know what that is. Folks who don't know what an offline-online workflow is, don't know what codecs are. And occasionally I get into code level stuff too. But that's what I'm doing as of now.
So similarly to Jeff, you're always keeping an eye on what's coming up, where it's going, what's usable, what's not usable.
It's having a stiff upper lip and a bullshit detector.
Right.
Because everyone's a grifter now. Everyone's got their side hustle of AI, insert topic here, and just weeding out what is actually doable and usable versus what's not.
Right, I agree. I mean, we're going to definitely get into the AI conversation and what's real and what isn't. But glad that you have that perspective. Okay, Shar, why don't you tell us, you have a very interesting job.
I do.
Tell us about it.
I'm executive producer of restoration and remastering. So on a day-to-day basis.
Could everybody hear that? I don't know if your mic is up enough.
I'm executive producer of restoration and remastering at MTI Film. So on a day-to-day basis, you'll find me as a headless chicken running around and doing a million of things. But technology-wise, one of the things that we're allowed to do at our facilities, because we use our own proprietary software, we can actually have input on what can be built and the tools that we need.
So in restoration, you're using MTI
We're
Film's
using,
tools.
exactly, we're using MTI Nova, which allows us then to have feedbacks every film. I mean, restoration is a little bit of a dinosaur island in its own, and so every film is going to require a very specific workflow based on the sources that you're working with, and so you have to build the workflow, and sometimes you have to build the tools for the specific film in order to be able to.
So do you build all those tools in-house, or do you use third-party tools?
We actually have our own programmers that are in New York, and we just say, this is what we need. We will like this tool. Can you work on it? And then they'll go in and find it. And one of the greatest things that they've worked on this year was the frame generator, so we can just recreate frames if they don't exist. So that was a tool that we requested.
And that's really interesting. I mean, in terms of regenerating frames, that's a tool that could ultimately have more usage than just restoration.
Exactly. So we're expanding that and seeing how we can use it in other fields as well. But it's a great tool.
Great, wonderful, thank you. And
Sure.
then last but not least, Xander, colorist. Those tools have changed a lot. Tell us what tools have you worked on? What are you using now?
Totally, yeah. I mean, for me as a colorist, technology is kind of the means to the end to do the creative. So at the color stage of the process, you really have to be technically sound when it comes to deliverables, formats, color spaces, codecs, color management, color science, things like that. Specific tools, I work in DaVinci Resolve on a powerful Linux system, connected to a petabyte of solid state SAN storage, using either a reference grade monitor, a Sony BVM X310 or a Barco 4K projector.
Great, and I take it you've probably tried all the other color correcting tools over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on both Baselight and Resolve. Currently working mostly on Resolve, but I mean, again, at the end of the day, I think the different programs, it's kind of like once you get the feel for them, you're just making the picture look good, executing the client's vision, and once you kind of get through the hurdles of, oh, that's where that button is, it's all kind of the same thing.
Okay. Before we go further, is everybody in the back row able to hear everything? Are we all good? Okay, because it's a little hard for me to know if you're loud enough back there.
Saw thumbs up from back there.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. Okay, now because this is the pre-NAB Editor's Lounge, we do have to talk about NAB. And we've gone through this before. How many here are going to NAB? Who's going to NAB this year that's up here? How about the audience? Who's going to NAB out there? Also. So I'm curious, Xander and Shar, you're not going. Are people from your company going?
Yes.
Yes, but you're not needed to go there.
I'm staying back. I like to be available for clients.
Okay.
And NAB kind of just, as soon as you go, you're going to get the call that there's a job, that kind of thing.
Meanwhile, Jeff and Michael, you kind of are obliged to go because it's your job to be at places like NAB.
It's Vegas. Why wouldn't we want to go?
Well, I could think of so many reasons, but that's me.
Christmas and New Year's and my birthday all wrapped up to one. I look forward to it.
Wrapped in sand.
I know, I love it, despite South Hall lower bathrooms. Everything
However-
else is awesome.
However, it's, you know, there's a lot of reasons not to go to NAB, you know, especially during COVID. Is it still important to go to a convention out in the desert where we all
Yes,
muddle around with
I
each
think
other?
it is because everybody has a point at which they want to get the biggest bang for their buck, the largest audience, and they bring those different messaging to that point. And NAB is in the Americas has been that time frame to do it. So all the announcements happen usually right around NAB. Some of us who go to the HPA hear some of those announcements ahead of schedule because they're kind of quietly talked about out in a smaller desert conference. But NAB is where people get that biggest bang for the buck. It's where it's always expected to happen, and that's where the product announcements are made. So what was it, hype at NAB and the product by
Announce at NAB, ship at IBC.
IBC?
Yeah.
But I think the other side to that, besides the zeros and ones, which I love, is that a lot of you may not see the person sitting next to you except when you get into a room like this. And so going to NAB and seeing everyone, and also talking to manufacturers and giving them a drink and having them spill the beans on products and stuff, that's stuff you can't get on well, we're all going to have a group Zoom call next week. You just don't get that. So go ahead.
And a lot of the opposite of that is true. They don't necessarily get out and talk to the right people. And if you're there to give them feedback on what they're doing as manufacturers, then they can take that back and begin to think about what the public really wants.
Well, and from the other side of it, if either of you went there as doing demonstrations on your company's gear, then you would get to meet a lot more potential clients and clients who could ask a lot of questions. I don't know if either of you have ever done that.
Just to see also the new technology and see what we could incorporate
Right.
into potential, remastering specifically. So
Right.
it would be very helpful for sure.
Okay.
I can speak, being on the manufacturer side for a short while, is that there's always partnerships, right? One of the big sells in an organization like Keycode, you're talking about how company A has interop with company B, and a lot of times you don't know who that company is. You can't see the forest for the trees. And going to NAB and going on the outskirts of whatever hall you're in and seeing these small companies, like, that's what we need. We can partner and help sell each other's stuff. And that's, again, something you wouldn't get unless you were walking amongst the 40,000, 50,000 people at NAB.
And it is true, when you go to the outskirts where the cheapest booths are, that's where you find the really interesting companies sometimes.
The smallest booths,
The
too.
smallest booths,
So
yeah.
a booth that would be like 1/3 the size of what's
Yeah.
under that grid.
Basically a table.
Yeah, a table, and at one of those a couple years ago, I saw something called Curio, which we'll get into later with AI. Very cool stuff. Now is owned by Wasabi, which is an interesting partnership.
But it's true, usually those are the ones where it's a table and then the guy or gal who created the technology.
Yeah,
So you talk directly to the genius in charge.
yeah. And then when they tell you what it does, and you're like, I needed to do this. Give me a week. I'll get that to you. No big deal.
Yeah. All right, well, I want to talk about trends, but I'm going to avoid you two for the moment because I know, keep time. Let's start with Xander and say, you're in your dark room all day long, we're both in your dark rooms all day long. What trend, have you noticed, are trends coming to you, or people asking for things that you have never been able to give them before, or that you wish you could give them? What trends are you noticing?
Kind of hard to say specific to that. I mean, we're kind of at a point now where, as far as long form workflows go, we've kind of been locked into this Dolby Vision it remains kind of the standard for long form episodic, with theatrical kind of being what it is. So it hasn't really, as far as asks from clients, I mean, there hasn't been a big change in that regard in the last year. I think what has been a bigger change for me is just really relying on a lot of short form work in the absence of all the long form work last year was probably, you know, the biggest change, in that that used to be kind of something to like fill in around the edges, and then, you know, that kind of became the bread and butter of last year.
That's interesting. So you've seen the trend of the content that's coming to you is different, and does it require a different treatment? I mean, a different workflow presumably, because it's short stuff.
Totally, yeah. I mean, short form, long form, kind of, in a lot of ways, very different processes, but I think there was just more of that to fill the void of the long form work that wasn't happening because of some of the the union stuff that was going on. It was easier to make.
Right, right, okay. And in terms of right now, you feel like you have the tools that you need to do the job that you're doing? That if there isn't some magic bullet product
well,
you want?
I think that right now, I think Filmlight definitely has a big edge on Blackmagic with the tool set. They've got some new stuff. They have this new tool called Chromagen. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but it essentially allows you to modify looks in scene referred space without causing any clipping or anything like that. And it's a completely new tool set that doesn't use traditional color grading tools, which are used more for balancing shots, things like that. Actually creating looks, they've kind of decided, hey, this needs a different tool set, a completely non-destructive tool set. And so I'd like to see Blackmagic kind of create something similar to that. They have a similar tool in the Color Warper, but it's nowhere near as robust, and it's not color managed, it's not scene referred. So it can't do the same thing.
Well, Grant will probably buy a company that does something similar.
I hope so.
And
That'd
then
be
offer
great.
it for free.
And I mean, and on that note, I would say the other thing that they have is with their HDR tool set, they have this thing called the texture equalizer that allows you to retexturize highlight detail when, say you're working in HDR and you have these like really bright speculars and you want to isolate them and make them a little bit more dim. In Resolve, there's not really a way to then take that range and retexturize the detail into that range. I mean, there's a roundabout way of doing it, but not just a way where you can take that same selection that you were adjusting and then go, oh, I'm going to retexturize it. So
Shar, you were saying how anytime there's a need, your geniuses in New York create the tool for you.
Yes.
So what have they been building this last year? What are the new things that
Like
people are asking for that you've been trying to create?
Like I was mentioning, the frame generator. So with
Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
So basically, old films are missing media. You will have 2 or 3 films missing. So whenever you're watching a Chaplin film and he's like, whoop, 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 that's why. So we are able to recreate those frames in between, and then you have a smooth image, and that's done through our generative AI. And then you were mentioning trends. I can tell you that I've seen definitely a spike in interest in restoration lately, and I think it's due also because of the promotion that is happening from famous directors, and Martin Scorsese has a film foundation, George Lucas sponsors restorations and things like that. And then when the pandemic and the strike happened, then we got busier in remastering. This is content that already exists. Nobody needs to go and shoot it. You just have to grab it and remaster it. And so that has been, we have gotten busier than ever, basically. So,
I love that.
yeah.
So much fabulous content from
A lot of content, but unfortunately what is happening is that because of the streaming and the requirements and the amount of content that is required to be put out, there's not a lot of, let's say, we're not emphasizing the quality of the product too much. So it's just a lot of up-resing, what we call up-resing. You just grab the SD source and up-reses rather than going back to the film and redoing the whole TV series or things like that. So
quick and dirty.
Exactly, very quick and dirty.
Okay, all right. Well, I love anything related to restoration, and the further back they go, the better.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, we've gotten so busy. TMC right now is doing a 100-year anniversary, so we were working on 20 titles. So remastering and restoration are things that are picking up as opposed to when post-production for us was really slowing down in the facility.
Oh, good to know. Interesting. All right, technologies. You are the two guys that are always looking for new trends, new technologies. What's the, you'd have to have lived under a rock not to pinpoint AI as the big trend of the year. But tell me, am I right, am I wrong?
Go for it.
You're right, and I was talking to someone just before we got in, and she was talking about what we were talking about last year in AI and how we weren't really thinking it was going to be a big deal. And was that wrong?
I don't remember it that way.
Well, the thing there is, was it a big deal on the show floor at NAB last year? It was a curiosity. And now we've gotten to the point where this is embedded into products. There's a couple things out there. One, there's the whole generative AI, which is the wonderful buzz that we're all hearing. And that's the stuff that people are worrying about. Will this come along and be able to do my job better than I could do it? And then there's the working class AI, the stuff going in and doing things that we would have spent a lot of time doing, or we wouldn't have done at all. Going back and telling it, hey, here's 20 years worth of the Shermer school board meetings. Let's find out every time Vernon was mentioned.
Nice.
Got the reference?
That was nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're Chicagoans. We do that. Being able to find that, you're not going to hire a whole team of people at X amount a year plus benefits to go in and find all this content. You're not going to do it. So if AI can go through an old library, find all this stuff, present it to you in such a way that now an editor can sit down and say, yeah, let's take this and remonetize this into something else or reutilize this into something else. We've now used AI to create new work, which is an interesting way to look at it. And it's one of the things I've had conversations with people over the last, since the turn of the year, going into places and they're like, we got all this stuff and we need to do this. How do we do this? We've got no budget. This is where AI is going to come in. It's going to allow us to actually do things that we wouldn't have done, because now it's going to be a lot less expensive to do. There'll be more to do.
Yeah, the analytical AI portion, and it's not sexy, right? Asset management isn't sexy.
Yes,
well, you might think so. Most people don't. But that's what the promise is. And unfortunately, over the past year, there's been so much hype on, look at this website that can create an image from nothing. And all of us being professionals in the field know that as a creative, you need to have predictable results, right? If I need to change, if I have a client sitting on the couch behind me and they're saying, want you to change that, and you can't say, I got to type in a prompt and hit again, and see if anything turns out. That's not going to fly. And that's what a lot of us we're talking about. But the portion we should really be focusing on is just what you brought up, which is the analytical AI, which is scanning what you've got and then presenting what you have in a way that you can make decisions and not be inundated with just Excel spreadsheets. The other thing that I'm seeing a lot this year is a lot of ask on, how do I manage my assets in the cloud and on-prem? A lot of the companies that have been around for a long time that handle asset management on premises, they haven't been able to make a move to the cloud. And asset management companies that started in the cloud haven't been able to break into on-prem. And so there hasn't been a good way that we can manage our assets in both places and track them and be smart about what we're keeping where. There's been a lot of ask for that.
Don't most people have a hybrid storage system? Don't most people have an on-prem?
A lot of people are still using the cloud as archive, or they're using it as proxies so they can locate things in cloud solutions like Iconic, et cetera. But folks who are saying, look, I have a petabyte on-prem, and I want to put stuff in the cloud because I don't want to save it on-prem anymore, or I don't want to put it on LTO. They now don't have a way of tracking what's where and knowing if they're replicating something and eating up space and thus paying for it.
So question, in what you're both describing, is it machine learning or is it AI? And do we care? We cared last year.
Does the audience care?
Do you care?
I care.
You care.
Okay, why do you care?
Why do you care?
Because in the last 3-4 months, I've started to look at AI and the improvements on things that I thought were going to happen are happening. And the reason why I care, because this is going to be the worst it's ever been. Meaning for the AI, meaning like it's constantly improving. And that's the one thing you have to keep in mind, that it's only going to get better.
So your fear is that AI is only, is it a fear or?
No, it's not a fear.
Okay.
I'm a realist. So it's coming regardless if you care about it or not care about it. But what I'm concerned about more so is how it's going to affect the energy and the industry, and those who are scared of it may be too late by the time it has improved.
But
And that is that's a good question.
it's a very good point. But the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence, does it matter to you?
That's
Those
what we're
two
talking.
different things.
No, machine learning matters because they're constantly feeding stuff right now. Like Microsoft is investing a lot of money in machine learning. Google's trying to get into the race. Apple's trying to get into the race. That's where all the money's going. That's why the Nvidia stock is crazy right now.
Yep.
So yeah, it definitely matters.
But there's a distinction that people made last year anyway between machine learning, which was just like dumb pipes. Well, I don't know. You should describe it better, but
it's machine learning is the information becoming available to machines for artificial intelligence to then act upon. So
there's no sentient being. There's no sentience.
it's not a matter of
there.
sentient being. It's a matter of if I've got a machine that does all these wonderful things, and I want it to do a translation to Portuguese, and the machine doesn't know Portuguese, it hasn't learned it, it's not going to do it. Doesn't matter how smart it is, it just doesn't have the knowledge.
Right.
So for most of us today, it doesn't matter. For a lot of us who worry about technology, and it sounds like you're in that group now, you're realizing that the more this stuff learns, the more the AI can be capable. Because the thing is, you've heard of LLMs, the large language models, right? You ever hear about LAMs? Just been announced today. Large action models. They're not just figuring out words, they're figuring out things. So they've been doing large action model gathering from what you've been telling Spotify to do for the last couple years. Hey, I'd like to hear the Led Zeppelin playlist. That's action. It's not broken down into those individual words that then have to be added and mean something.
Let me pull this back just a little bit because I definitely want to go into. I mean, you brought up a really good point, and we are going to go there. But maybe that was a little bit of misdirection about ML and AI. Okay, but how are we seeing it actually influence? I mean, do either of you? I think Shar, you said that you are seeing it impact your job because you have people on your staff developing software that uses generative AI.
So we can generate frames, and that's, I mean, for us, it's incredibly helpful.
So it's not replacing anybody's job over there?
No, I mean, it's always a tricky question because is it going to replace someone's job? Yes, a lot of the things are going to be automated that are being done by a person, I'm sure of that. But there's always going to have to be a check person. And the check people, I think, are actually increasing. The need for those people that need to check what is being outputted is increasing rather than decreasing. Okay. So yes, it's creating jobs in that way and losing jobs in another way. So yes, for specifically to restoration, I could give you an example. We have to remove dirt. If I can automate that, and there's not a person that is singularly sitting there and removing the dirt frame by frame, right. I mean, obviously that's going to eliminate a lot of jobs, but then somebody's going to have to look at the product that has been outputted by the machine, and so that's already another job.
Right.
And although it's a different industry, how many engineers were involved with training a model, cleaning the data, making sure it works?
Tons, exactly. So there's always, yeah, exactly.
And Xander, are you seeing AI in any way at work in your field? Tell us about that.
So I've been part of a team at IDC developing a solution that we're calling Refine ML, which is a process that combines traditional post-production techniques as well as machine learning models to increase perceptual and actual resolution of video content. So an example would be we had a client that had a film that they had made in the 90s that was a kind of niche cult film that was going to get kind of a festival screening, and they needed a DCP for that. So they had a film print and a PAL DVD. Well, we were able to take the PAL DVD and rip it and put it through Refine ML to create a 2K video source that then we created the DCP from, and that screened at the festival and it looked great. So that was a kind of what you were talking about, where that's a scenario where you have something where, well, there's one process that's going to be really expensive here. There's one process that maybe isn't quite as good as going back to scanning film. Well, I mean, it's not the same, but was it good enough for what they needed? Absolutely, and it costed a fraction of the price.
Right. Okay.
Deborah, the phrase I like to remember, and I think all of us should remember this, is that AI is not going to take your job. A human with AI will.
Yep.
Okay?
How many negative cutters out here today?
Yeah, very few.
None.
I think if we look at a lot of us editors, you know, at one point in time we were great at media composer. And then you realize, you know what, to get more gigs, I got to learn a little bit of graphics work in Photoshop. And then some jobs started trickling in where, oh man, I got to use After Effects, right? In order to be more marketable, you had to do more. And that's going to be the same with AI. You're going to have to incorporate AI into what you do to get those jobs, because if you don't, someone else will.
Right. So, in other words, you have to keep learning, which has always been true in our industry. So last year, you're saying at NAB, AI was a curiosity.
I was working for a manufacturer at the time, and there were dozens of people that came up, and you know, of course, they do the 10-foot stare, right? They're 10 feet away, and they're like, should I come and talk to you at the booth? Do you do what I think you do? And they come up, and the first thing is, so what are you showing? Any AI? I heard that more times than I can count.
Really?
Yeah. And now this year at NAB, I think it's going to be, yes, we have AI, but it's mostly bullshit. And it's mostly, oh, what are we getting enough interest in that we can make work before we have to ship something at IBC?
All right, well, let's talk about, so what do you think you're going to see at NAB of all the AI there? And there's going to be a massive amount of quotes, air quotes, AI. How much is real and how much is bullshit? What do you think you're going to see?
Well, I think a lot of the generative stuff is going to be leaning toward the bullshit, because it's got people's attention. It's really cool. I mean, what was it that the founder of Blackmagic said about? Yeah, he said some. Look up his quote on.
What was it?
Eat your own vomit?
That was
Yeah.
what he said AI is.
AI is like eating your own vomit. So
I've heard of eat your own dog food, but
yes,
not
it's
eat your
Well, is
own
this like
vomit.
garbage in, garbage out?
no. Well, basically, the concept there is that generative AI is only derivative, and the derivatives can only get worse. If you remember
good
the
point.
movie Multiplicity with Michael Keaton, he's a copy of a copy. He's not very sharp. Hi, Steve. So that's what the concern can be. But what we're also going to see is a lot of that AI that people have really gone and integrated into products that are going to do things for us that makes things simple. I mean, I've got Copilot's in my pocket. It's on my phone. I can pull up AI anytime I'd like and ask it to do certain things for me. Will it do them as well as I could? Maybe. Is it going to hallucinate pixels like you're talking? And you need it to hallucinate pixels? The other thing with generative AI is people are going to use that for hallucinating images as starting points for creative. Because it's going to think of weird crap that, oh man, that's really weird. You know what? I can take a little bit of that and I can use that. Because the thing is, the creative mindset is always going to be there, and you know, creatives find inspiration from all sorts of different places, whether it's in real life or came out of an NVIDIA card. So we'll be able to take that and continue storytelling from that point. That's the stuff that is going to be cool, but it's going to be bullshit because it's not necessarily going to be really tightly integrated into current products that are going to do things for you other than a little bit of coolness in your hand. The working man AI is the stuff that I think is going to be all over the place, and quietly under the hood, it'll be, you know, 3 lines down on the brochure thing that they've got out there, and they'll be talking about it, you know, quietly.
But there's going to be plenty of things where people think getting the term paper written on you know, with ChatGPT or creating the picture, that's it. That's my masterpiece. And they're not using it as a jumping off point for their own.
That's kind of like saying I'm a really good artist because I can use MS Paint.
Right. But there's already been a lot of that.
I think one of the rubs this year is going to be everyone is going to say we have AI because they are paying for OpenAI's ChatGPT and they're using the API or they're plugging in to ChatGPT. And the problem with that is we don't know what data it was trained on, and so we're always downwind of whatever mother OpenAI has given us.
So you're saying that AI is telling us that AI is great?
Yes, that's what the AI tells me. So I think next year when we start to see companies say, you know what, I can train my own model on data that I want to be in there to get to this end goal, instead of saying I'm going to piggyback what I want to accomplish on whatever stuff OpenAI was trained on. And there hasn't been enough time. AI has only really been in the public consciousness for last 18 months, 2 years. We're too early in the game where there's not enough what I call applied AI, where there hasn't been enough training where the manufacturers that are on your line card, a lot of them are saying we're just going to plug in to existing AI, and we've tweaked it a little bit.
And for our industry.
And for our industry.
Because remember, AI isn't exclusive to media and entertainment. There are other people using AI for all sorts of things today, and they are going to be moving the ball forward a lot faster than we are.
Like the military?
That's one of those people, I would think.
It always is, where the military and entertainment, where,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, Israeli defense technology invented the first down line. Most people, it was a visualization technology that the NFL was able to get, and it just worked. They're like, oh, this is cool. And now we can turn it colors.
What I am hopeful to see with AI at NAB this year is what I mentioned earlier, which is, okay, the media generative AI, where here's an image, here's a video, here's audio, here we can make someone sound like someone else, is the tools that I think should be out there right now, which is the analytical, which is saying, this is the character sitting outside on a park bench drinking a can of Coke. I want to find this talent saying this thing in this situation, because that's going to help tell my story, and I don't have to go through and trying to remember what clip was that in, right? You won't have as many loggers. It's that kind of content.
Logging, yes.
That's the kind of tools that I'm looking for. And if anyone from is Avid a sponsor tonight?
Yes.
Avid is a sponsor?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll choose my words carefully. A majority of us.
Be nice.
Oh, I will. A majority of us use Avid, right? And last year, Avid announced their SDK, right? Their software development kit. So you can build a panel, much like you would inside Premiere, right? And much like you can do with Resolve Studio. And I haven't seen much come out of that. And that is what us who use Media Composer, we need that analytical AI to edit faster, to make creative decisions without going through all this footage. And I would implore Avid to hurry up on that.
All right, I have a couple of questions. So. What AI, for all of us who are either going or not going to NAB, what AI enhanced products do you think you'll see at NAB this year that you are interested in checking out?
Well, I'm interested in, well, I could actually come out and say it now, Wasabi's Air tier.
What does that tell us a little bit about that?
So Wasabi's a storage bucket. It's been around for years. I back up my home stuff on it. I did that before I was even employed here at KeyCode. They do a lot of backups for media and entertainment. They're just a small, they're a cloud provider that's not part of the hyperscalers. So they bought Curio from a company, the whole company, Gray Meta. So it has the ability to go in and find stuff. And when I saw the demo, they showed it was a Golden State Warriors game, and they told the system, find the Adobe logo. And it found the Adobe logo. The Adobe logo only existed in one place. It was on top of the backboard. It only could be seen on a slam dunk camera looking straight down. Humans wouldn't have found that. That blew me away. I was like, this is some cool stuff. but they didn't have their act together in terms of product. So Wasabi bought them, and they're going to be part of the Air tier. So you put your stuff in there, and you can run your cloud stored data against it. And then you can take those results and pull them back into your live environment and use them. So you got your archive sitting out there already safe. It's getting new information for you to feed back to your active editorial environment to find things to then use them. There's also some on-prem versions of that same sort of stuff. We're working with a company called Periphery that's got that. The only thing that's an interesting thing about on-prem storage is the on-prem storage that runs in is in that room and it's turned off because it would have been too damn loud for us today. So anything that is on-prem, if you get a data center, hey, that's perfectly fine. But a lot of the things out there that are going to run on-prem for AI are going to be storage intensive because they're designed to run on files and usually run large amounts of data through at a single time. So just keep that in mind. And those are some of the things that I'm going to find they're going to be interesting right off the bat.
What about you, Michael? Are you?
Stole my thunder because I love Curio. In fact, a mutual friend of ours called me yesterday to tell me all about the price. Yeah. So Curio is fantastic. I think we'll see tools that are like that you will be able to run on-prem, that will be able to take a look at your content and give you all that metadata that you then populate inside your NLE and then make decisions on. We're also going to see tools that are building blocks, meaning you can have this AI talk to this AI, talk to this AI to accomplish this long task of things. And that's, you can already do that on the web. There's already several websites that can do that. I think we'll start to see more things like that. What we'll start to see, and I don't know if we'll see a lot of it this year, is, as Jeff alluded to, or Jeff mentioned, LLMs, large language models like OpenAI's ChatGPT, are huge, and they need huge infrastructure to run. I think we're going to start to see small purpose-built models. One model that only looks at logos. One model that only looks at faces. One model that only looks at, or only can translate between languages. And then you'll have a overarching AI that says, oh, I need to deploy that AI agent to do this, and this AI agent to do that, because that is less intensive on premises. And a lot of clients we work for aren't going to put precious things in the cloud, right? What they put in the cloud is stuff that's already been released. They're not going to put stuff that's still in pre-pro or in production in the cloud unless it's backed behind some serious security. So being able to run it all on premises, but not just that, they only pay once, right? They're not doing that subscription model in the cloud.
In and out.
Yeah.
So Shara, a little bit it was reminding me of what you were saying. It sounds like you're doing this purpose-made kind of use of AI for something very specific. We were talking a little bit about how you're able to fill in frames, but that it has many other uses. Can you talk a little bit about where you see this going, or where people at MTI are aiming it to go?
Well, I mean, the generative AI we can use to fix any sort of film-related issues. So that would help with any kind of things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis with restoration. So you'll find tears that will need reconstruction. You'll find glue that has been dragged all over the film for ages. I've worked on films that were stored in someone's garage for 20 years, and you have to deal with mold. So if there are any AI tools that are able to catch these kind of big mistakes that are incorporated in a film or in an image, and just like I said, like the mold, for example, it's very easy to spot when you're working on it. So if anything that would be able to study the image and generate something that is clean, that will be extremely helpful for restoration. And then in remastering, I can tell you, editorially, we've been working with some companies that are able to, we scan all of the footage that there is for a film, for a TV series, or for anything, and then through a reference tape, they're able to give us an EDL, which I think is magnificent, which is eliminating the conforming aspect for us. And it's a huge aspect for us. So if there would be any emphasis in that, I think for the remastering side, it would be extremely helpful, because that is a tool that is fantastic for
Michael,
us.
this is kind of what you're talking about, a very kind of narrow use case.
In fact, there's one that I completely forgot to mention, and I'm drawing a blank on the name. I'm sure Mike and Jeff know who this is. But it's a storage intelligence that you feed it the mezzanine file of whatever you have, and it will go through your entire footage and say, I found 10 variants of that you can delete. In fact, I found this frame here, and someone flipped it and did a punch in.
Yeah.
That's a duplicate. You don't need that. And that in turn allows you to delete or archive that to free up space so you don't have to buy more storage.
Sounds like Shar knows exactly what you're talking about. So Xander, you too, I mean, what?
I got to give a little shout out to my friend Nick over there, because he's created it. What can we video? Can we talk about?
You're saying no one waving your hand?
Okay.
Yeah, is that
Okay.
a yes or a no?
I guess it's a no.
All right, but it sounds really
I'm not saying
exciting.
It's not AI. This thing that Xander's talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of this can be done with calculation much faster than with machine learning.
So that's a great example. I mean, you know, we're going to call a lot of things AI that may be really fabulous tools, but aren't necessarily AI. True?
We've gotten used to saying, give me a QuickTime, even though we all know that's not what you call it. We all call things, that's 4K, no, that's UHD, right? So I think there's the engineers talking to engineers, and then there's, let's just get to the root of the question without being
And I
pedantic
think
about
that
it.
nowhere does that happen more than in color, which is the most subjective of the arts, right? Make it like my dreams. I mean,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
But
I mean-
that is a good point, though, that this is super helpful, though.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from my perspective, you know, the tools that I'm kind of most would be, I should say, open to are, you know, things like a plugin that could do, say, like image stabilization, and then if the shot needs to be punched in, it can use like some kind of generative fill to fill in could keep it the same size and use generative fill to fill in what's missing, or something that could do like paint compositing fixes using generative fill, something like that would be cool. Time remapping, frame rate interpolation, that kind of thing. I would say the stuff I'm not interested in is anything with a proposed creative use case of any kind. I would say, you know, at this point, that's going to be a no for me.
Can I ask why? Is it just because nothing can do my job, no way I can do my job, or you're like, I want to be the creative one?
I think it's maybe a little bit of both, but I think it's more so at this point. I think that everybody who's kind of making the claims that their sort of large language model can do something creative, it kind of goes back to the Grant Petty quote, and you know, so I think it just eventually we might get there, but you know, I think at this point the creatives who are involved earlier in the process in production, their existential threat is a lot greater and a lot closer than it is for me. I don't know if anyone's aware of a certain debacle that happened with a certain fitness brand campaign. This is public information, a couple weeks ago, but there was an ad campaign that aired where they fed an old I might paraphrase and miss some details here, but they essentially fed last year's spot into AI because the athlete wasn't available, and didn't credit any of the creatives that had made the original spot. So kind of what I'm saying here is I'm here for my creative collaborators, directors, DPs. The current phase that AI is in, you know, I can't say this is a welcome creative tool to them. So it's not something that I'm gonna be quick to embrace, because I want to sort of, what's their problem today is going to be my problem tomorrow. So, and we've all heard, you know, fix it in post, you know, fix it in AI. It's just, you know, let's not go there.
Let me throw in something else here. I mean, I think color is very subjective. I think we see Directors have their favorite colorists that they work with over and over and over again, just like their cinematographers, because they know their colorists are creative people. They're not going to want to do it with the machine. They want to. We're still a people business, Hollywood. Filmmaking is still a people business.
Yeah, and just because you feed in every movie that Steven Sonnefeld's ever done,
Right.
you feed it data and say, give me this in the way he would color it. The other parts you're missing is, I mean, 40% of your job is being a psychiatrist, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You got people
Sure,
on
yeah.
the couch.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose what I was kind of trying to say is that I think eventually we are going to get somewhere where like you're essentially supervising some model that's like, well, like I made it look like whatever, so does it look right? Yeah, no, adjust it a little bit. I think, but I'm not going to be the person that's at this point championing any of that or embracing it as some early adopter to anything like that at this current stage.
Well, what I'm thinking, because it sounds like we're almost going 0 to 60. It doesn't work, or it does it perfectly. What about doing the balance pass? I mean, is that something that you would be in favor of, where it's balancing all the shots, so you don't have to do that, and then you can go in? Now the line is always, oh, you have more time to be creative. No, you won't have more time to be creative. They'll just constrict the post deadline. But wouldn't that make your life a little bit easier if things were balanced?
I mean, I think in theory it would, but people act like a balance pass is like, oh my God, I got to do a balance pass. I mean, what, like, oh, you put the reel up and like go balance the angles, like put it in sort mode. Oh, there's the A cam, there's the B cam, do it. I mean, it's just part of the job. And okay, sure, does it save you 4 hours? Maybe, but how much does it get right? How much does it get wrong? And then how much time are you sitting there fixing the things that it didn't do right? I mean, okay, I agree that eventually, I mean, I don't want to say I agree. I'm sure we're going to be at a place where it does the balance pass for you. I think that's inevitable. But I think at the current stage that we're at, I'm just saying I personally am not rushing into being an early adopter of embracing any of that.
But the
That
thing
makes
is, it's
sense.
already done the balance pass, so now you can have more power windows on top of that frame than anyone's ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but at what point is it shot so well that you don't need power windows? Oh, and then you already made the show look, so it did the balance pass for you.
So, yeah, we shoot on more and more garbage, so we don't have to worry about that.
No, I mean, I think I'm not saying I'm not open to any of it. I just think we're in kind of a delicate balance right now with stuff like we have the person from Sora meeting with the heads of the studios, things like that. I'm just kind of not gonna kind of jump 2 feet into all this and be like, yeah, let's do AI, if that makes sense.
Well, especially as you say at the show this year, half or maybe more of what we're going to see is bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's too early,
Well,
I think, right?
the thing about the balance pass thing is it's going to kill the opportunity for the color assist to become a colorist. Because one of the main things been working in the post house is the senior colorist may allow an assist to do the balance pass to get practice. So by getting rid of that process, you're killing the process of creating or having an industry that can continue to grow with the next generation.
Well, and that's already happened with editing.
already happened.
It's already happened with editing. I think this is a good moment. Do we have a microphone for questions? Because I think it's a good moment for now to break for a little bit of questioning before we finish up everything that we've got. Sorry, is this a surprise attack?
No worries.
Because I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
heard your question. Basically, the question was, if you have,
If the robots are doing it,
Then
will that eliminate the ability for people who are coming up in the industry to help?
yeah, the apprenticeship model was destroyed, was really messed up in the editing world by nonlinear editing. And now the same thing could happen in color, which I think,
happening.
and is happening in color already.
But we're also seeing kids in high school and college used to say, I want to work in Hollywood, saying, I want to work for Mr. Beast. Right? So there's jobs opening up elsewhere where maybe maybe you don't want to hit that penultimate where I'm working on a $200 million film and doing the color for that.
Well,
right?
I think it's a reason why to be transparent. From
Wait for the
Sorry,
microphone. Yeah, there we go. So everyone can
I
hear.
think there's a reason for that to be transparent. As somebody who
dust color myself and have worked at Company 3 in the Mill and Ethos and these places as an assist, understanding that these younger kids who are gravitating to YouTube is because the trajectory of actually moving up may be greater from not going through a post house system. Because that, as we're talking about, that apprenticeship isn't there anymore. And those going through the process, though it may not be publicly said, we're very much aware of it. So I don't fault the kids for figuring out like, yo, you know, maybe I should go this way because I might actually have a career path versus I'm gonna go this way and they're gonna keep telling me that it may or may not happen. I think
I would
yeah.
challenge that. I
Okay.
would challenge that. I think kids are being influenced by influencers, and they're saying that's what I want to do. I don't believe they're saying that's what I want to do because trying to do this in Hollywood is going to be difficult as hell.
I'm telling you from somebody who spoke to multiple assists and understand on the ground level what's happening.
Okay, we have another, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off because there's going to be plenty of time afterward. We have
No, I have
another.
a quick question.
Quick.
I just came back from HPA, and this is kind of a question for Xander. What I found in technology in my short tenure in this industry is that executives find the biggest byline, expense, and a big part of that is color correction. I don't know if you know what color correctionists make, but they're the highest end of this. And some of the AI that I've seen that is changing the industry and within the year is going to be dramatic. So my question to you, Xander, is they're gunning for colorists. And the AI technology right now is pretty incredible, meaning shortening the hours of colorists dramatically. So I would like to get the panel's perspective on a projection of 1 year, 2 years, and how the technology is coming, and what parts of the industry do you imagine that the technologists are going to attack first? Because in my experience, it's the most expensive part. And right now, it's color.
Okay, good question. Let's try and keep our questions brief.
Okay, well, I guess I can start. Completely agree. I think that, you know, the solutions that I'm currently aware of, and there's only one that I've seen, is definitely not quite there yet. I mean, I think the real question about what you're talking about is, sure, if the studios are gunning for that budget, do they trust this solution? Or if they're putting all this money into this product, I mean, I don't know that I buy on these big things that they're like, if we're talking like you're talking big studios, right? And that's what it sounds like. I'm not sure that I totally buy that they're gonna wanna put this product that they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on and hoping to make hundreds of millions of dollars on in the hands of an AI. I don't doubt that it's gonna get there. So I think kind of the thing that's gonna need to bridge that gap is like somebody who can convince them that, no, this is good enough, and I'm not really sure who that is. Frankly, what I was kind of waiting for or thinking how this was gonna go is it was really gonna come down to when does Filmlight or Blackmagic have the tool that can do this so that the people that are trusted to supervise the image creation, because ultimately it is gonna, like whether or not AI does it or not, colorists is still gonna have to look at it.
Right.
So, so I was kind of thinking it was gonna go more that way, that they were gonna kind of be the ones that, oh, it's a tool that we're already familiar with. But I mean, I think we're all well aware of it, and it's not just color, it's sound, picture editing. I mean, it's the whole, it's coming for the whole thing.
But I got to argue on that a little bit, right? Because if you look, and this is going to piss people off, but we all know there's a pecking order in post. All right? We know who makes more money than another division, right? And what we've seen is we saw Pro Tools democratize audio to the point where you now had people doing it in their bedrooms And now we don't even have three-person mixes, right? You're now doing two-person mixes. Then we had the commoditization of NLEs. You didn't have to spend $100,000 for Avid, you now had Final Cut for $1,000, right? Then we started seeing VFX being commoditized. We don't have to, Deborah can talk about that day in and day out. The last domino,
Is color.
respectfully,
It's true.
is color.
Yep.
And so that's, again, Tony, you're right on that, is that, and I also want to keep in mind that we're not talking about all or nothing, right? No one is saying we're not going to have a colorist look at this. No, we're going to have AI handle some of the stuff that may not be as important as
You're
the.
also kind of talking about two different things there. All the other dominoes that you're talking about that fell had nothing to do with AI. This
No, but it was innovations in technology.
It was
And
innovations.
fair enough.
cheaper technology.
So I would say that the domino for color in a lot of ways has already fallen. I mean, truly, like the gap between what you get paid, like what kind of money projects have, is like wider than it's ever been. I mean, essentially, the only projects that really have money to actually pay for color at this point, commercial campaigns for an ad agency, I would have to say like top tier scripted television and studio features. Everything in between that right now is the Wild West as far as budgets go, and it has been for like 4 years.
Yeah, and
so
the
that's
thing is, it's also being held up by relationships. So the studio has a relationship with the director. The director has a relationship with the cinematographer. The cinematographer has a relationship with you as the colorist. They're not interested in having a relationship with,
Well,
Hal.
And I think
1000.
I would say good luck making Dune 2 with AI. I think that
we're
best of
clearly
luck
not
to
there.
you.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is everybody else who's talking about AI. If you read the news, is it going to be the end of the world, or are we going to see a new?
Stop reading Twitter.
No.
Stop the
Hello.
schmucks on Twitter who don't know post-production saying, Sora's coming for you.
No, it's New
Eat it.
Yorker I'm
It's-
reading.
it's-
Excuse me, not Twitter.
Folks predicting the end of our industry who have no idea what it takes to
No,
be in
not
this
the end of our
industry
industry. The
is
end of
garbage.
the world.
The end of the world, yeah.
We're not talking about the end of our industry.
I, for
But-
one, welcome our robot overlords.
There you go. But I mean, yes, it is definitely a question of the on-the-ground workers have been under attack for a very long time. People have lost ground and lost ground and lost ground. I mean, the VFX people went from being kings of the hill to being completely commoditized. It can be done anywhere in the world for a fraction of the cost. So why not color? There's a question over here, but let's wait for, is there a microphone? And then I'm going to lead us back to the rest of the program.
So in this, is that on? Is that okay?
Yes.
In this can't step in the same river twice, I just want to express my gratitude for Keycode and Mike Kavanaugh, because for all these 20 years or so that I have been a customer, when I have something I need, I know that if I call this place, I will get a party, number one. But first of all, I will get what I need. And number two, Mike Camus. Is that how you say it, Camus? Camus. I am so grateful also in the changing world that we have someone like Michael, who is, has an intellect and has a worldview that's beyond technology, and I'm so grateful to you and to Keycode. And my question is, can you tell us the story of all of the computers when they get together, and what is the question they ask?
Thank you. I swear I didn't pay for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, who paid for that?
There's a great story. I forget who the author was. It's a short science fiction story. And the short version of it is thousands of years in the future, humans have connected with aliens on other planets, and we've all connected our planets together in an internet of sorts, and we reveled at how much we know and how much we can do, and we hooked all the computers together, and we asked it this one question. And the question was, is there a God? And the answer is, there is now. And when AI really came into public consciousness 2 years or so ago, that story, every day I think of that. And will I be around when AGI or even more is out there?
Artificial
and
general
it
intelligence.
becomes our God
Overlord.
of sorts. Yeah.
Well, Jeff is looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Coward.
Coward.
I'm just writing checks, that's all.
All right. Well, we could really go down a deep rabbit hole on AI, and I will have one question at the end. But let's move on to the question we always ask, which is editing. We always ask about who's using what. How many editors do we have here? A lot of editors. Okay.
So not many.
No, not many, right?
We'll
All right.
cut some of them out.
Who's using Avid? Still a lot. Okay. Who's using Adobe Premiere? Who's using Final Cut Pro 7? Ooh. What?
Oh, curveball.
Who's using Final Cut Pro 10? Ah, nobody. Okay. And who's using Resolve? Really? Okay.
Wait, again. Everyone using Resolve, raise your hand. How many of you use it to edit?
Ah.
How many of you use it for Fusion? How many of you use it for color? Okay.
All right. Interesting. Good point. All right. So and Adobe is putting some pauses on acquisitions. What can we say about what's going on in the world of editing?
They dodged a bullet.
Adobe?
As those of you who may not know, Adobe was poised to buy Figma. And I think it was it antitrust? Was that it was there was a lawsuit, not a lawsuit. Anyway, it was not blessed. And I think Adobe dodged a bullet because with how fast AI and ML are progressing, why do I want a tool that I have to use my hand and build things when I could have AI say, build it like this, no, make the corners rounded, no, make the colors like this. So I think they dodged the bullet. They still had to pay, what, $2 billion?
There was a cost to it, and
Yeah.
the FTC has got an eye on them now.
And Avid was acquired by private equity, which is never a happy thing usually. But what do we think about that?
We don't really know yet. I mean, there's
Always makes me nervous.
Come on, Jeff. Come on.
there's been some changes, but nothing dramatic in terms of product. I don't think it's affecting anyone in this room today.
No.
No, but I think the concern is obviously when there's a move from to private equity that there's what exactly would you say you do here, Bob? There's always some constricting of folks,
thing going on.
The company line is, hey, this will allow us to innovate faster because we don't have to worry about the rules surrounding public companies and disclosures and stuff like that, and I hope that's the case.
Well, what about remote editing and remote work of all nature? I mean, what about you, Xander? Remote work?
I work like majority on-prem. For certain small things, I can do them at home. And I think for the most part, that's what I see. Most colorists are majority on-prem, some hybrid, and some special circumstances where people primarily work from home.
And Shar, what about you?
In the facility, yeah.
In the
we have to
facility,
be in the
okay.
facility in
All right.
order to. It also requires an environment that it's you have to be in the dark. Your screen has to be. It's not an easy thing to have access to at home.
Right. Okay. Are there trends in remote? I mean, has that just plummeted, the amount of remote editing we're seeing, or is it still big?
Remote is still huge. People are divesting real estate all across the country. And they're creating rooms the size of that room back there in the corner, and they're filling it up with edit systems, and people are working from their house. So that room late last year held 25 edit systems that were being farmed out to do a reality show. And then when their facility was built, they put it in there. 3 edit bays, 25 edit systems, 3 edit bays. So it's still hugely remote. There's a little bit of hybrid for folks that need to come in and do reviews, but I'm not seeing any huge return to office.
And that's mainly, so editing is still mainly remote now then?
Yes.
Well, the one thing I am seeing that is not progressing as fast, nearly as fast as we thought it was, is there's kind of 3 paradigms, right? You edit on-prem and you sit in that room, right? Or you go home and you remote into that system, or let's put everything in the cloud, right?
Yes.
I left working for Keycode to go work for a company that did that, one of the leaders in the industry. And it came down to two simple truths. One is that the cloud's too expensive. And the second part of that is it's not going to get cheaper, not because they can't make it cheaper, is there's not enough availability. What we found, there were outages. I'm sure you've heard last year there were outages with AWS and AWS East. And why was that? There weren't enough graphics cards to go around. That was basically it. A, there were supply chain issues because of the pandemic, but there's just not enough compute out there.
Shar is nodding her head.
If they lowered their prices, there'd be an influx of people and they can't support it. Also, and to your point, is that there's still some things which can't be done natively in the cloud. You can't mix 5.1 with stuff that's in the cloud. You can't do an accurate color pass because you're streaming an 8-bit 420 signal.
You can't do it inexpensively.
You can't do it inexpensively, correct. So normally the cloud at this point, if you're editing with your machines in the cloud, you're doing creative editorial, maybe some news or ENG, and that's about it.
Well, one of the other things also we discovered about cloud editing, and this was mentioned at HPA, every cloud editing configuration is bespoke. It does something different. So our friends at Amazon said, let's do all of our shows in our cloud. We own a cloud, let's do this. So they did a test thing and they said, let's do this, let's ramp it up. And then they dead stopped it. Why? It wasn't because of cost, it wasn't because of availability. They're Amazon, they get whatever the heck they want. It was because it was going to be too costly to create all these bespoke workflows. See, when we do things with the gear we already have, we're constricted by that thing. In the cloud, everything is possible, and everybody knows this. So they couldn't build a snowflake workflow for every single show because it was too much of a cost internally for them to do. So they said, let's rethink this, we'll get back to it, but it did not go into the cloud full bore, even for a cloud-centric company.
You were nodding your head. Do you have something to say on this?
I had problems with deliveries when everything was shut down. I mean, we couldn't deliver files for a couple of weeks, and it was a big problem for us.
So in the technology sphere, are we going to see anything at NAB interesting with regard to editing, or are we kind of at a little standstill place with all the technology surrounding editing?
There's going to be add-ons.
Better monitors, maybe? No.
Who uses only 2 GUI monitors today to edit?
You know what I find the trend has been? A lot of editors have moved to the coding paradigm, right? Which is instead of having 2 16:9s, you have one 16:9 and then one on its side, right, for your bin monitor. So that's obviously changed.
Well, no, I mean, the question I'm asking is who here edits with 3 monitors where it's the SDI full feed all the time? Raise your hand.
Raise your hand. So, yeah,
So,
some people.
Some people do,
Some
but
people.
not a lot.
All right. We're running out of time. I want to quickly cover another topic, which is actually a big topic, but let's touch on it anyway, which is how the industry has really never picked up again after the strike, and it's impacting everybody, I think. How can people adapt to that? What advice do you give for people caught in this? A lot of people looking for jobs, or a lot of people complaining of things being slow. Any advice or thoughts about this? Xander, do you want to, I know this may not be something
Yeah,
that,
I mean,
what are your thoughts?
I think it's just a market correction, and the markets, there's fear in the market because of the potential of another strike this summer.
Right.
So that's not helping anything. And as far as what you can do what we always do, talk to our peers, talk to our colleagues, connect with people, stay in touch, support each other. I don't know that there's really an easy answer other than that.
And what would you say to people who are getting into color, who are assistants, who want to move up the chain? What would you say to them? They may be deprived of more opportunities to do.
I mean, I'm definitely feeling a tinge of gatekeeperitis, but I think that, be patient. It's tough for a lot of people right now. I mean, realistically speaking, I had the thought the other day, because I moved here in 2011, and I was kind of like, when everything was so great when, I got going, and I was thinking the other day, I was like, man, I'm so lucky. Like, I really felt very fortunate to move here at that time compared to what it's like now.
Timing is everything. All right, Shar, any thoughts for you about, I mean, you've been super busy. Is this a good time?
Yeah, that's you guys should all join the remastering and restoration if you're
All right,
having
are you-
issues. There you
are
go.
you
That's my
hiring?
suggestion
Are
to
you
you.
hiring over there?
We sure are. We're very
Okay.
busy. So
Talk to her after the show. All right, what do you think, Michael and Jeff?
I work with editors and creatives every day, and it's now become, what else can I do to bring money in, and I don't want to drive Uber, right? So a lot of suggestions I've had, which is learn to be technical, because there's people who are technical and don't understand creative, but you can be creative and understand technical. That creative is something that's more difficult. So that can lead you to work at places you may not have thought of before.
Good piece of advice.
Training, right? Whether it's working at a school or whether it's working at something like Keycode Education, where I'm going to teach people how to use Premiere. I'm going to teach people how to do secondary color correction in Media Composer, right? There's those things. There's also, and I had another one, and consult.
Oh yeah, consult.
Yeah.
So I every time I go on LinkedIn, I see the little green bands around the lower left that say open to work. There's some empty seats here that weren't empty the last show we had, and this is usually our big attendance event, because there's people I know that have had to leave town. They can't afford rent here in Los Angeles anymore because they've just been idle. The remastering. The thing also we learned at HPA is the electronic side of remastering has a limited lifetime on it. They need to get that content remastered and into digital as soon as bloody possible. Because the other thing, there's not enough videotape head hours remaining in what's out there. And the other piece is mold is eating everything from 1990 on.
There's still a lot of quad out there too.
There's quad, but the thing is, mold is eating videotape too.
Yes.
So the bottom line is, people are beginning to realize that they need to pull remastered content in, because it's content that people will still consume. Right. And the thing is, what we do in this business is we provide content for people to be entertained. I used to have an old quote that I would say, if everything goes horrible for me today, the worst thing that can happen is someone's not entertained. The truth of the matter is, there are segments of the business that are going to be busy because of these things. The reverse localization process, it's huge right now. It used to flow the other way, American content going out to everywhere in the world. Now other content's coming in, and they're having to relocalize that for us. So there are different things out there. It's just you got to be really creative
and flexible.
And the truth of the matter is, follow the money. There's money. Just follow it. See where it's going. It's like, oh, yeah, content's coming in.
That's a lot of great advice. I think do we have maybe 5 minutes for Q&A? Oh, yes, and there's questions.
Laura,
And please,
Laura, you had a question.
If anyone
Please-
has
I would like to hear what Laura has
if
to
anyone
say.
has
please
questions,
keep it to a
please raise your
question
hand.
as
We'll bring
opposed to a statement, because we really are running out of time. Oh, microphone.
Yeah, I had a few comments throughout, but I raised my hand at 2 points. I don't think you all saw me the first part. I was going to posit definitions about ML and AI and why I disagreed with what you all were saying about how to define it. We could talk about that afterwards, but one question I was going to ask, as I had my hand raised and you saw Xander said literally what I was about to ask is, what if it's not OpenAI that tries to make the color AI tool? What if Filmlight, DaVinci, or any of the other players decides to do it, a company that we generally know and trust? And what would that do to the relationships, and would studios buy it? Would DPs buy it and directors and go for it? Say, well, this is a company that has all the data about
So interesting.
what creatives, namely the colorists, think and do and how they do it and why, and what the sort of maybe not literally the data, but the metadata of what that creative process is and that subjectivity, and could they turn it into an AI use
It's kind of
case?
going back to black boxes, isn't it? It's like a return to proprietary in a way.
Well, the thing is, what you're saying there is that The color tools know how all of the famous colorists currently in operation
Yes.
function. That's hidden in the metadata of the projects and the databases out there. That information is somewhere.
Yeah.
That's a worry.
It is a worry.
Is that if you sit in the room with directors and DPs, you're going to get a sense of how they feel about AI. And I can tell you the amount of care that they're taking for their imaging and how dialed in they are to create their visions. The last thing that they're embracing right now is having AI touching anything that they're doing. So whether or not will Filmlight or Blackmagic do it, I'm sure they will. Will DPs and directors like it? They probably won't have a choice. But will they? Would they jump at it? Like right now, it's deeply unpopular, just across the board.
Well,
With my collaborators.
can a colorist copyright his or her, metadata?
Yeah, well, that gets into a whole
The
nother.
retort to that is, well, you know what? They're okay with something being transcoded. They don't go in there and say how you're changing those pixels. They're okay with it being transcoded. They're okay
I can
with
tell
being
you
at a
don't
dub
sit in room with
stage.
DPs.
They're okay with being in a dub stage and having a compressor do what a compressor does. They're not looking at the waveform.
See, we're going down the
No,
AI
it's
rabbit hole.
It's not a rabbit hole. It is
Rabbit hole.
It is a work product hole. So it's a question of, I've done this work for this company, for this film. I no longer actually own it. It belongs to that feature. It belongs to the company I worked for that did the work on it. It's Company 3, it's Disney, whatever. That's no longer mine.
But it might be the company's. Maybe if you're Company 3, you're going to be very angry that Filmlight is,
Could be.
people are going to argue over ownership.
Yeah, but also the other thing is, those color companies, they hold the databases, not the vendors.
Do we have time for maybe one more question?
We
maybe?
can take a few more questions.
Oh, okay,
but
great.
yeah, on the YouTube, we are streaming everyone.
On the YouTube.
Okay.
So
On
on
the
YouTube,
YouTube.
we got Bill Dawson, and he's asking about camera innovations. It sounds like it's more broadly on the broadcast side and in the capture side for theatrical and TV. Are there big camera announcements that we're expecting, or is it?
We didn't touch on that. So
We didn't touch on anything imaging. There was an announcement I saw yesterday. Blackmagic's got a camera out that can capture directly to the Blackmagic cloud, which is interesting. So they've taken the whole camera to cloud thing and they're going to turn it into something that the individual imaging companies are going to be able to run, which is it's a smart play for them. I mean, if you're building the head, why not build the infrastructure to hold people's data anyway?
And Red being sold.
Yep.
So Adobe partnered with NVIDIA a couple of years ago, and they're doing right now Photoshop extension of photos, adding components using AI. Avid has added Ada into their system, which all of this is they're creeping around the editorial rough cut, the versioning, and say Adobe or Avid announce an AI version that can create its own edit. What's the reaction of the community?
No. Here's what's going to happen: is they're going to build as Avid has already done by building the SDK, and how Premiere has the API for the panel. Some third party is going to do it, and the NLE can say, "Well, I didn't do it. This third party did." It would be insanity for a company that sells software to real people to say, "Here's the tool that replaces you." That makes zero sales sense.
Question over here.
This might be like way out there, but it's more like copyright law kind of regarding. So AI learning with the machine learning, anything that you put into it, it's kind of cloud-based. So isn't that technically kind of public? So like published within the public sector, which would make anything used by AI learning in the public.
That's the other fun little thing, and that came up at HPA.
Interesting.
So if AI does it for you, you don't own the copyright. So,
But AI can't get the copyright. for it.
no one owns the copyright.
Right.
It just became public domain. So this is there's a whole slew of legal and ethical issues that the United States is extremely slow in coming to the table on discussing. So,
So become a lawyer. If we're not going to edit anymore, become an
Yes.
AI IP lawyer.
yes, because you understand the needs of the industry. So Europe's ahead of this on this, and there'll be more to come.
Question over here.
Question that might affect assistants. I've been reading a lot about autonomous dailies. There's a company called Constellation AI, I think. Can you speak about that?
Autonomous dailies.
Well, it's funny you should mention it. Because it was just pitched to me outside before we came in here. And not by anyone from the company, by somebody that's using it on their work, and they had a lot of good things to say about it. It's definitely that's going to make that job go away, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Frame.io do camera to cloud, right? And if you've seen the kind of sneak previews of Strata, you've seen that's kind of camera to cloud 2.0, where they're doing more afterwards. It's syncing dual system audio and creating the viewable version. So unfortunately, that's been on the decline for a bit in terms of a task that a human has to do.
Yeah, or if humans were doing it, they weren't located on set. It was decentralized. Upload the data, have one small group of people doing it. Mobile dailies.
A question over here, yes?
Yeah, I have a quick question. In a world where Mr. Beast can get so many viewers whilst breaking pretty much every technical standard I was ever taught when I learned to be an engineer, what is the future for that high quality, high production when the world seems to want Mr. Beast?
Well,
people said
It's a
that about
very
South
valid
Park,
question.
too.
it is a valid question. I mean, and every time I go into a movie theater, I see trailers for how movies should only be seen in movie theaters. However, there's so many people who are consuming them on much smaller screens, in UHD, not 4K.
Yeah.
If you look at what people were doing with telecine and music videos in the 90s and the way they were kind of breaking the video signal, but movies were still what they are. I think it's kind of similar to that, but I think there's always going to be an appetite and a distribution outlet for perfect and imperfect.
Yeah, and for beautiful images, right?
Yeah, does the image weirdness help tell the story? Okay, that's cool. Does the image needing to be perfect help tell the story? That's also cool.
Yeah, and things that shock us now. I mean, I mentioned South Park. When South Park first came out, people were the look of it was, people hadn't seen that, and a lot of people didn't like it. They thought it was garbage.
Yeah, well,
So.
they thought it was different because it was, this animation. Can you imagine Oppenheimer
weird
done with
animation, yeah.
South Park puppets? In black and white and color? That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
If the guys are listening, let's do that.
Yeah. Other questions? I have a question, which is, if people go to NAB or anywhere else, and we've already said at NAB there's going to be at least half of the AI, so-called AI products are going to be bullshit. How do people, if you don't know a lot about AI, what should people look for to determine, is it bullshit or is it for real? How do people tell the difference?
Is it in a shipping product that people are using and you have use cases?
Yeah, but they may not have use cases.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from,
But if
but
you don't
just
have-
because someone is 6 months ahead in development doesn't mean someone who's 6 months behind has a crap product.
Like,
No,
what
or
should you
crap
listen
idea.
to that will make you think, oh, they're onto something? Is it going to be really hard to tell?
Well,
or are there
if-
things to look out for?
If you watch the demo and it does something you haven't seen before, that's compelling. That's what's moved the needle for me before with AI. It's like, this does something that we would need to spend a ton of money to get.
Don't listen to what they say. Look at what it does.
Pretend you're from Missouri. Show me.
There you go.
I would also ask, what is this built on? Meaning, did you build this, or are you piggybacking on something that someone else did?
Yeah.
And I think that will help, because if they say, oh yeah, we're tapping into OpenAI, well, okay,
Yeah.
we know 3/4 of the work's already been done by somebody else.
Yeah, or we're pulling calls off of Amazon's recognition service or
Right.
this service or that
All right.
service.
So hopefully we'll be savvy consumers when we go
Yeah,
out
because
there.
there's aggregating products that are out there.
Don't talk to sales reps. That's what I'm
That's
getting
the
at.
other
That's
thing.
the
Don't
that's
talk
the
to
thing
sales
here.
reps.
Don't talk to sales
Don't
reps.
listen, just watch. Any other questions? Or we have one more question here. Is it a question?
So as a
Wow.
Voice of God.
Nice.
Yes, right.
So as a person that's going to NAB for the very first time, I'm popping my cherry. I've heard avoid the sales reps. Ask them, what is it built on? Did they build it, or is it a subsidiary of something else, or what have you? What is your suggestion for somebody who's never been, going for the first time?
Oh, good question.
What should I avoid, look forward to, best way to pace myself, how many margaritas not to drink, or
Well-
to drink, all of the above.
So
Great question.
one of the first things I will say is you need to wear the most comfortable shoes
That are broken in.
that are
Yeah.
broken in that
Leave
you've
your high
ever
heels
owned.
at home.
Yeah, that
Uh-huh.
you've ever owned.
Yeah, right.
And if you're planning on being on the show floor early, don't stay out too late.
I've got a ton of things. Take a water bottle so you can refill because water costs too much there. All right?
Oh, yeah.
Stay uber hydrated all the time.
Super
Start on the outside. Go to the outside and walk the outside, and then go to the inside. Don't go down the middle at the beginning because you're going to get lost in the Black Magic hub. I recommend checking out the other floors the earlier days because traffic goes down as the show goes on, and then you tackle South Hall Lower. I think did South Hall Lower this year?
Yeah.
That's where my people are. That's where all the post folks are, and that tends to thin out as the week goes on.
They're also in South Hall Upper, too.
South Hall Upper,
Yeah,
okay.
so South Hall is mainly post. There's a lot of newer technology sort of stuff and a little bit of transcoding in West. Traditional broadcast is in Central. The North Hall is under reconstruction this year. So the other thing is if you are going to go from the South Hall to the West Hall, there's the Tesla tunnel. Go out the back door or the front door by Central.
Yeah.
It goes in, it's a loop over to there.
You can also download, they have an app that will take you to,
Yeah.
help you to find all the booze.
And the thing is, if you're also planning on seeing a number of different things that you're pre-planning, pick a hall a day. I'm going to do the South Hall on Sunday. I'm going to do the West Hall on Monday, and then I'm going to have the Tuesday left over for Central or any other parts of South that I missed.
Don't carry any bags or any backpack. You'll find a booth that has like a bag for swag, and then use that. You want to travel light. Take a pen with you because you're going to talk to someone at a booth, and you're not going to remember in a week what you talked to them about. So you write down on their business card they're going to give you what you talked about, or have a little notepad and write that as well.
Bring snacks so you don't waste time in a very long lines for lunch.
Yes.
And money.
And money.
Yeah, a lot of money for snacks.
Yeah.
So yeah, bring your own snacks.
You'll have fun. You'll meet a lot of people. It'll be great.
Oh, and mints or gum. Because it's so loud, you got to get up close to someone, and you don't want to leave a bad first impression. Oh, come on.
It's quite fair. And maybe
All right.
maybe hand sanitizer too, just to be safe. Yeah.
Are we wrapping it up here? It's good? We're good. Thank you guys so much for coming. Really enjoyed you very, very much. And maybe you hang out for a bit. People
Yes.
want to talk to you. Oh yeah.
That sounds lovely.
All right. I feel like I cut